Vegeta is the best plot device Toriyama could have possibly introduced in Dragon Ball. Throughout his time in Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta is consistently the reason that the plot is able to move forward, and it's normally done in such a refreshing way. At the end of the day, Vegeta kinda just wants to fight people. Even his wish for eternal life was so that he could eventually fight Frieza. This type of moving the plot forward sometimes comes at the cost of Vegeta's IQ points, but regardless of that, it's still him in the end. I don't like every single one of these instances I'm about to bring up, and I'll mention my gripes with the type of writing when I think they are valid complaints, but for the most part, this is going to be me glazing Vegeta and how well he exceeds in this area. I do Dragon Ball videos often on the channel, so if you enjoy that type of content, I'd like to ask you to leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. I'm going to skip over the Saiyan arc because Vegeta sort of is the plot here in this, or rather getting rid of him is the ultimate goal of the arc. The only real thing about him that comes out of this arc, at least that applies to this video, is how Vegeta introduces us to the Freeza Force and the rest of the universe. But I think Vegeta on Namek is a much better use of this concept to begin with, because even if Vegeta dies on Earth by Krillin's hand at the end of the Saiyan arc, we still would have been introduced to the Freeza arc eventually, because the Z Fighters still would have gone to Namek after Krillin's idea to revive all their fallen friends. But Vegeta on Namek serves as a great source of fear for Gohan and Krillin and makes them act with extreme caution. When Krillin and Gohan get to Namek, in less than 10 chapters, the Freeza Force lose all their scouters and therefore their ability to track them, since no one on the force can sense power levels. Vegeta comes in with the ability to sense power levels, and that simple technique that he learned made it so that Krillin and Gohan could not move around the planet how they wanted to. Rather, that meant them having to stay in place or move at a very slow speed. They couldn't do it. Vegeta is also this chaotic third party in the Namek arc, so he disrupts Frieza's side as well. Not only does he keep knocking off Frieza's best henchmen left and right, he keeps a Dragon Ball away from them thanks to his new ability to sense ki and therefore find a village before they could. And because he did that, Zarbon, after their fight, had to have Vegeta healed. That way he could tell him where the Dragon Ball was, which then led to Vegeta not only getting strong enough to beat Zarbon, but it led to Vegeta stealing every Dragon Ball that Frieza and his henchmen had collected so far. I actually think Vegeta showing up after Gohan got his power up from Guru was a good thing, because had he not found them, the arc likely would have taken a turn for the worse. The effects of Vegeta not getting Krillin and Gohan would become apparent immediately. Up until now, Gohan had been following Krillin's command, and that's how they maneuvered the planet and stayed out of harm's way. Vegeta taking control of the situation is a nice change of pace, because under Vegeta's command, this now 3-man squad is all about action. If Vegeta doesn't take command here, then it's extremely obvious what Gohan and Krillin would do. They would sense the Ginyu Force has extremely high power levels, ones they can't hope to fight on their own, and decide to hide their power and wait until Goku arrives. Vegeta, if he's smart, will likely suppress his power level as well, so that they don't find him and his 6 Dragon Balls. If he doesn't, then he straight up dies, and that's bad because there's a high likelihood Goku versus the Ginyu Force goes the same way it did in the first time, and ends with him having his body stolen, and then the arc is over once again. So let's ignore that path for now and go back to Vegeta laying low with his 6 Dragon Balls. That's also extremely bad because it means no Zenkai boost for Vegeta, Gohan, or Goku. Goku versus the Ginyu Force likely goes the same way, assuming Captain Ginyu doesn't get involved earlier, but regardless, if he gets his body stolen, even if Ginyu can't control it just like before, there's nothing to stop Jace from helping Ginyu this time because Vegeta isn't going to be strong enough to contend with him. I don't think that Toriyama thought this far ahead and about this much stuff, obviously, but I do think the decision to make Vegeta take charge of the group was the smartest thing he could have done in this situation, and that just helps me make my point for this video. For the plot to continue, you need Vegeta here. Vegeta's team up with Gohan and Krillin also saves their lives. They were going to be dealt with by Goldo until Vegeta decided he wanted to attack Goldo. I don't think I need to mention how Vegeta was needed during the fight against Captain Ginyu, as he distracted Jace and basically got Goku his body back with how badly he was beating up on Captain Ginyu in both his own and Goku's body. This beating Vegeta put on Goku's body, as well as the healing pod he escorts Goku to so that he can be better, are both a huge help as well, as without them, Goku would have easily been defeated by Frieza even if he awakened Super Saiyan. For those of you who don't know, which you should, Super Saiyan is a 50 times multiplier. Goku in his base form was a 90,000. That means even if he fights Frieza and awakens Super Saiyan, without using the healing pod, his power level would only be 4.5 million. That's not even as strong as post-healing pod Goku with a Kaioken times 2. I've been avoiding mentioning it for a bit here, but Vegeta is obviously pretty integral to the Super Saiyan buildup. I mean, from the minute Goku displayed any ability on Namek against Recoome, Vegeta was glazing him, talking about how he could be the Super Saiyan, and then that prompted Vegeta himself to try to become a Super Saiyan. This isn't stuff I really need to say. We all know the Super Saiyan is an amazing payoff moment, and I think that's due in part to Vegeta helping build it up for so long. This is all just one arc. Vegeta advanced the plot in one arc a ridiculous amount, and the arc would have been considerably worse without him. His presence as a third party allows for a lot of different routes to be taken that keep the story going at the breakneck pace the Dragon Ball manga is known for. This sentiment could be extended to the anime as well, so long as you're talking about Dragon Ball Kai and not Dragon Ball Z. Vegeta will continue to be an integral part to the story continuing into his next saga. Here at the beginning, however, he kind of, I don't want to say is useless, but he's not driving the plot as much, and he doesn't have nearly as much presence as he did in the last section of the story. You would think this changes after Goku gets sick with the heart virus because the team needs a Super Saiyan, and it happens that Vegeta can now play the part, surpassing even Goku's level of strength. But Vegeta, while he is a major player here, is not driving the plot forward. This is one point in the story that fits the overall criticism of Dragon Ball about it being senseless fighting, I guess. Or I guess I shouldn't say that, since this fight makes Vegeta start thinking of a level beyond Super Saiyan, and it makes Piccolo want to go merge with Kami finally. After this fight, Vegeta literally just stands around for a while. He takes a far more passive role in the manga until he emerges from the time chamber. In this aspect, Vegeta is more like a slow cooking plot tool to use when he's needed later. We don't actually see any of Vegeta's training in the room like we do with Goku, so his progress isn't as known, but with Cell becoming as strong as Toriyama made him, making Vegeta this strong seems like a natural response to that. And what I mean is, Vegeta in the time chamber has no known progression rate. We just know that he's trying to ascend past the level of a Super Saiyan. The unknown and vague aspect makes Toriyama able to focus on Cell and his growth, and then when Vegeta comes out, he can be as strong as he needs to be in response to Cell. For example, we find out Vegeta's goal, which was to ascend past Super Saiyan, was reached 2 months into his training, and he took another 10 months to get more training in. When Vegeta gets to the battlefield, it's sort of the same as it's been for a while. He's again a major player, he's just not driving the plot the way I want him to and how I would have come to expect. So while he's dominating the battle and it's extremely entertaining, nothing is really happening. And I'll be honest, it's not like any of us thought Cell wouldn't reach his perfect form. I think the very fact that it exists as a concept and he's one step away from it is proof enough that it would have happened. But at this point, it's just like, how will it happen? And this is where Vegeta becomes the guy we know and love, because due to his Saiyan instincts and wanting a tough battle, he wants Cell to become perfect and up his power level. This decision is stupid, of course, and I think characters need to be stupid sometimes. More specifically, I believe a character should have some flaws, and this flaw fits Vegeta perfectly. He wants a good fight, he doesn't care about the android, so Cell getting stronger to give him that challenge seems like the decision he would make here. And really, this decision is only stupid in hindsight. Vegeta has no idea how much stronger Cell would get. He wasn't around to see how strong Cell was before he absorbed Android 17, and at the moment, he was far stronger than Cell could even dream of being in his current state. But this decision, coupled with Krillin's stupidity in destroying the remote, make for some great character moments. Trunks blasting Vegeta so that he can go stop Cell is good for him, especially given how much Vegeta means to Trunks, and Cell showing off his ability to manipulate Vegeta makes me think a bit more highly of him. With that move, Cell got the strongest guy around on his team and essentially sealed the deal on him getting his perfect form. And it's all because his opponent was Vegeta. Had his opponent been Trunks, he would have gotten washed without a second thought and never been able to reach his perfect form. But Vegeta is dedicated to driving the plot forward and will do it no matter what. So Cell is allowed to reach his perfect form. I will say it would have been cooler if we actually got to see Cell and Vegeta team up here. You could have Vegeta take the remote from Krillin and get in his way so that Cell gets 18, or you could have Krillin actually use the remote and have Vegeta stop him from throwing the blast that would destroy her, making it so that in the end, Krillin made it easier for 18 to be absorbed since she couldn't move. After Cell becomes perfect, Vegeta is sort of back to how he was the rest of this arc. He gets beaten up and he doesn't really do anything, especially not to be that best plot device that I was talking about. I mean, I could bring up how he freaked out when Super Perfect Cell killed Trunks, or when he hit Cell in the back of the head, which let Gohan land the killing Kamehameha on him, but those examples don't really fit what I'm going for here. While they highlight Vegeta making a change in the arc, they aren't him driving anything forward. Hitting Cell in the back of the head is something, however. I mean, it lets Gohan literally in the arc, but it's not like how in the Freeza arc, when Vegeta not being there would completely change things. Here, yeah, Vegeta helps Gohan, but Gohan always had the power here, at least according to Goku, and he merely needed to use it, which seems to be confirmed in guidebooks because they call it the strongest Kamehameha in history, meaning it would have overpowered Cells. The same line of reasoning applies to the example of him freaking out after Trunks dying. These examples don't really do anything, and specifically in the Trunks example, this is not how Vegeta normally is. Vegeta doesn't normally cause setbacks that have no potential for a major return. Just a quick example of what I mean before moving into the next arc is whenever Vegeta beats on Goku's body, that is of course a setback, but we knew Goku would get stronger once he recovered. Here, Vegeta just freaks out, and it is a good character moment for sure, I'd never argue against that. It just doesn't fit the mold of what I'm saying here. Moving into the next and last saga I'm going to cover here in this video, the Buu Saga. This might be the best use of Vegeta as a plot device yet. If not for Vegeta, this saga would not have started at all. I'm going to give a quick timeline just so I can show how well everything is tied together, how Vegeta completely steals the show, and lastly, how the arc couldn't have survived without him. The World Martial Arts Tournament is happening again. Everyone shows up, including a fighter who had shown up before but lost to Hercule, a man named Spopovich. Spopovich is seen as a bit of a jobber, but is much stronger this time in the tournament. We learn he works for a wizard named Babidi. After he takes Gohan's energy back to Babidi, we find out who else Babidi has in his employ, that being Dabura, which gives reason for an explanation of how he uses his powers, which is by capturing the evil in your heart and using it to control you. Inside Babidi's ship, Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan must fight Babidi's henchmen without getting harmed, or their energy will be taken and Buu will be revived. Vegeta deals with his opponent with ease, and Goku does too, but Vegeta notices something here. In the next room, Vegeta is acting incredibly more hostile, causing Dabura to pick up on it and tell Babidi he could be capable or worthy of bringing to their side. And later, we find out Vegeta did that on purpose. Everything there is tied together so well, it almost doesn't even feel like Toriyama wrote it. I'm not one to believe that Dragon Ball has no nuance to its plot or no complexities, but I do believe that Dragon Ball for the most part is pretty simple. And this isn't groundbreaking or anything, but it's certainly impressive that Toriyama was able to tie all this together as a way to not only get Goku and Vegeta to fight again, but to have the main villain of the arc be awakened in the first place, when it seemed like they were just going to breeze through the competition on Babidi's ship. Vegeta does this quite a bit, so if you're going to have Vegeta drive the plot forward, have him do it in a unique way like this, while simultaneously pulling together all these small details that were littered throughout the arc. And when Vegeta does get the spotlight here, he really gets it. He easily manipulates Goku into fighting him again by just slaughtering civilians and right in front of his wife. His obsession with Goku really shines through here as well. And while I don't really enjoy reading this fight that much, watching this fight is great. But yeah, all the events of the Buu Saga happened because Vegeta decided he wanted to try his hand at being evil again and fight with Goku. Without Vegeta's decision, the arc is kind of cooked. Dabura was going to be beaten by Goku or Vegeta, so Buu would have never awakened. I could move on to talking about the Kid Buu fight and all, but all Vegeta really has there for the context of this video is coming up with a plan to use the Spirit Bomb. Of course, that plan was good, but it's not crazy, or at least it's not so crazy that I have to glaze it like I did for the other things I brought up in this video. But that's the video. If you think there's something I missed when Vegeta was a good plot device, you can leave it in the comments. Obviously, if you like the video, leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel. But other than that, have a nice day.